Okay.
There you are.
Yes. Now I just need to. Okay, hello and welcome everyone to our last day of webinars. So we have two tonight, one right now and one later at 8 o'clock. So we're very excited to have you join in. My name is Jody Williams. I am oh my gosh, I don't even know who I am anymore. I am the co-chair for the First Nation Métis Inuit Education Association of Ontario. Very happy to be here with my friends and colleagues, and I'm also joined with my friend and colleague Tisa, who will be introducing our today's guests.
Miigwech, Jody. So my name is Tisa Fiddler. I'm the coordinator for Indigenous education at the Thunder Bay Catholic District School Board, and I've worked with the First Nation Métis Inuit Education Association for Ontario for a couple of years now, and really excited to be here this afternoon to introduce our special guests. We were on last evening with Elder Morris Switzer, and there were a couple of other fabulous evenings that were Monday and Tuesday as well. So this afternoon is going to be just as great. So I would like to introduce to you our guest presenter for this afternoon. Her name is Kelly Crawford, Miss Kelly Crawford. She's from Michigan First Nation. She's currently a PhD candidate with Laurentian. She is a woman of many strengths, a beautiful Kwe, Anishinaabe Kwe. She is she's a knowledge keeper. She's a historian with treaties, and with all of that knowledge, she has created incredible teacher resources that I personally have used in classrooms, and I I encourage teachers that I work with to use the We Are All Treaty People Teachers Kit, which is geared to kindergarten to grade 8, and the secondary level teacher kit, Gdoo-Sastamoo Kii Mi, Understanding Our Nation and Nation Relationship. And she also has children's books that talk about the origin of treaty and the intent of treaty. And Kelly, sorry, are those books, the children that are in those books, are they not your children's names?
Yes, Dakota is, it's after my daughter Dakota, and Alex is actually the boy who made the wampum belt.
Beautiful, thank you. So beautiful, beautiful books. So Kelly is currently with the University of Toronto. She is the Assistant Director of Indigenous Initiatives there. And this evening she has, or this afternoon, she has Josh Ishkagogan. I apologize, Josh. Josh is just another true gift to the First Nation Métis Inuit Education Association. He is an elder on our Elder Council. Our Elder Council is such an important group of individuals. They guide the work that we do. They are pillars in Indigenous education, and really, they without them, we are not able to do this work properly, appropriately, respectfully. So we have much appreciation for the work that Josh shares with us, and the many others that are on the Elder Council. So miigwech Josh. Josh is also an elder in his community. He is from Wikwemikong, and we are just really very happy to have both of you here this afternoon. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Josh. Miigwech.
Anyway, Kanawea, bonjour. Chimiwech for that introduction, Tessa. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to say the opening prayer for this webinar tonight. In the traditional Anishinaabe way is always to acknowledge the happening and what we're doing today. So I'm going to be doing a prayer in regards to asking those directions, the 7 directions above Mother Earth, within, and the 4 cardinal directions, to open the doorways for us to be able to understand the communication and the understanding of one another in today's society, and how do we fit into this big puzzle that we live in, what we call Canada. So these prayers will be for the teachers, for the students, and to learn to accept one another in regards to where we belong into this big puzzle. So I always start off with the eagle whistle. It's a representation of healing. It's a representation of working together, and it's a representation of the power of the eagle to take our prayers and our thoughts to the Creator or to the universe to make it real in regards to what we're asking for today. So my prayer will be in the language, and I might translate it here and there a little bit of it, but my prayer comes from my heart, and my language is in my heart. Naho. Obozo tijemnelo. Shkiki adzu nenang den danglish nakas. Them keeping a shindole. My name is Keeper of the Medicines. My name is Shnabe Nosum. Shkiki adzu. Shkiki means medicine. Adzu is a life and keeper. So I say Chimi West from my clan, the Eagle clan, the Tumberner clan, that guides you and walks with me. So I say Chimi West from my community of Wikwemikong, the community of where I'm from, where my spirit lies. I say Chimi West for the island that we're living on, Manitoulin. And so I say Chimi West to you, Creator, for the knowledge that you're giving us, Kinomadwin. The Kinomadwin of understanding who we are, where we come from, understanding of where we fit into our life. So we ask of you to guide us through that journey. We ask of you, Creator, to guide us through that journey, and to all the teachers and students that's understanding in regards to their purpose of this life that they carry. So we say, Chimigash to you, Shkakmakwe, Mother Earth, for letting us walk upon you. We honor that honor of teaching us the medicines, the honor, the gift of food, the substance that you give us. We say Chimigash to you, the Chichak, your spirit, my spirit, and your spirit in this circle of honoring our thoughts and our prayers so that we can understand and communicate each other. And now we can pass it on to our children and their children. So we say Chimi Wish to you, my spirit, and the spirits that's listening. I say Chimi Wish to you in that direction of the east, Wabanum, that direction of our new beginning, that direction of the sun arising, that direction of our prayers to be taken from the eagle, to take them to the universe. We always ask for healing when we ask for prayers. So we ask for healing for all the things that we need to heal from. We say Chimi Wish to you, that direction of Jaunum, that direction of the south, that direction of understanding where love and compassion comes from. and the teaching of our children, of understanding where we fit in into this world that we live in, how we walk our path. We say Chimi wish to you that teaching of that washkish, the deer, of teaching us and showing us about awareness, teaching us about compassion and forgiveness. We say Chimi wish to you that direction of the Grishmak, the West. We say Chimi wish to you for teaching us and leaving these teachings behind our ancestors that's passed on, for them to be in this circle to guide us through our thoughts, through our prayers, to understand each other, to communicate another. I say Chimi wish for you, the black bear, in that direction, for giving us that mshkike, that medicine of communication, of understanding. We say Chimi wish to you, the direction of the north, Giwetno, that direction of our ancestors. We say Chimi wish to you, the white bear of Shkimko, for giving us the strength. We ask of you to guide us, to take our prayers and our thoughts, to give us the strength to understand each other, to communicate together, and that we pray for our children, our teachers, our educators, from the white wolf to teach us about relationship. We all need to understand the relationship of one another, just like the wolf has a role and responsibility in their pack. We as people also have a role and responsibility to learn from the wolf, to understand relationship. So we say Chimi wish for you to walk with us. We say Chimi wish for those teachings. Zagadwin, love. Debwewin, the truth. Nadintamowin, respect. Nabukawin, wisdom. Tabadendiswin, humility. Wekwadzwin, honesty. Mino Akadewin. We walk with these teachings on our belt so I can understand our communication and who we are. So I acknowledge everyone in this circle tonight to learn from what we need to learn from. Ho, miwech, miwech, miwech. Back to you, Tess.
Or over to Kelly.
Yeah, miigwech, Josh. Josh, that was absolutely beautiful. Sorry. Really, really beautiful. Such a great way to start this session this afternoon. So thank you. So Kelly, the show is yours.
Okay,
I'm looking forward to this.
Okay. Ani Kenawea Bamasha Megazai Kwe Indigenous Cause Wabi Jeshe Dodem Jiging Donji Anishinaabe Kwe and Dao. So hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to take a look at the high school kit in this session. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just play a quick video just so you can see the actual contents of the kit. Then we'll move into just going over the teacher's guide, and I'd like to share some parts of the kit with you as well. So I'm just going to play this for you.
Just a reminder, Kelly, when you share it, to click on the share sound as well.
Okay. Okay.
Bonjour, welcome. I'm Laura, and I'll be your guide for the Anishinaabe Treaty Education and Resource Kit. We'll go through the overall kit, looking at each piece and learn how those items fit into your classroom activities. We'll hear from the creator of the kit. At the end, I'll tell you where and how you can order your own kit. Let's get started. The kit comes with a number of pieces, foremost of which is the teacher's resource guide. This guide provides complete and detailed lesson plans for the secondary school teacher, focusing on the relationship between First Nations and settlers. Everything you need is included in the kit or referenced in the guide. including a DVD copy of We Are All Treaty People, the story of the Indigenous colonial relationship from first contact until today. A copy of Nation Nation, a fact book exploring Canadian and Ontario treaties past and present. A copy of Little Butterfly Girl, a storybook depicting the Indian residential school experience from the perspective of a First Nations girl. A copy of Treaties Matter, Understanding Ipperwash, a fact book documenting the precursors to and the aftermath of the shooting death of unarmed Dudley George by an OPP sniper. A word-for-word copy of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Poster-sized wall maps and maps for photocopying. Relationship blanket making materials. We've also included supplementary materials, such as bookmarks, posters, and other books that can be used to help enrich your teaching environment and add greater depth to the lessons. Some of the lessons revolve around additional reading, watching videos, or listening to music. Each lesson clearly identifies which resource to use and where to find it. These online and audio-video resources are included in the kit or available online on the Anishinaabe Nation website. The kit was developed by Kelly Crawford in consultation with Anishinaabe Nation elders and knowledge keepers. As a citizen of Chiging First Nation, Kelly has an authentic understanding of treaty relationships and First Nations issues as they relate to the materials. As a Director of Education for the Anishinaabe Education System, she brings professional practice and experience to educational resource development.
The education philosophy behind the kit really focuses on finding activities that are connected to the Ontario curriculum expectations, but that are delivered in a way that really showcases Anishinaabe ways of knowing and doing. The expectations are connected similar to the scope and sequence that the Ministry of Education has put out. The kit and the activities in the kit and the lesson plans in the kit connect to a variety of subjects in the Ontario curriculum, such as business, civics, English, environmental science, family studies, social science, geography, history, interdisciplinary studies, law, media studies, music, native studies, politics, visual arts, and art. The kit is intended to empower teachers to empower their students to talk about the treaty relationships in their classrooms. The activities within the kit are flexible enough for teachers to be able to add and extend how they see fit.
The kit is assembled at the Anishinaabe Nation head office and is packaged as a single box that can be mailed or couriered anywhere in Canada. Send us an email at orders@anishinaabe.ca or give us a call at 705-497-9127 to order your kit. Thank you. Miigwech. Goodbye.
Good evening. I'm excited to
Now you guys are seeing all my emails. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about when we're going to talk about treaties with our students. I think one of the challenges really is getting them to put it in their own context. So for example, let's say we were doing a session in person and I was really wanting to, we're in person, let's say I'm 5 hours away and I say to one of you is, well, do you think maybe I could come over for dinner and we'll just make somebody up? Sally says, yeah, sure, you can come over for dinner. So I go over to Sally's house for dinner, and she is a fantastic cook, very hospitable. I'm just having a great time. And I just think, you know what, I'm kind of tired. Sally, do you think I could, sleep on your couch tonight so I don't have to drive back? And Sally says, oh yeah, sure. So I sleep on the couch. The next morning she makes me breakfast, so comfortable. And then I'm getting like really comfortable. So I say, well, do you think maybe I could stay another night? And Sally says yes. And before you know it, weeks and weeks go by, and I'm being treated very well by Sally. And before Sally knows it, she's in the corner of her backyard, fenced in, and I tell her when she can leave and can't leave. That's really what's happened in this country. And it's hard to have those discussions. And when you're trying to, especially with your students and having those discussions, like, what does that look like? How can they, what can be relatable for them to really understand this massive piece of history that oftentimes wasn't told the correct way. One of the things I do when I do student sessions is I get them to think about, like, when we're talking about, like, what is a treaty? Okay, well, explain, okay, it's an agreement. And what I say to them is, okay, so pick your favorite place in the school or, at your house. So typically they'll say the gym or the cafeteria, something like that. And so then I'll tell them, okay, so let's take the cafeteria as an example. So I'm going to take up that space. But in exchange, I want you to come up with things that you would want in order for me to share this space with you. So they work in groups and they start, of course, the usual money. I've gotten like Xboxes, all these different items. And so they come up and let's say 5, they come up with 5 items. And each group then shares their lists. And then I tell the whole group, you know what, I agree. I'm 100% will provide you with all of that. So then they get, kind of excited and not kind of sometimes wondering if I'm actually going to take over their cafeteria. But then I tell them, you know what, but the next day I'm going to change my mind, but I'm still going to keep the cafeteria. And then I ask them, how does that make you feel? And most times it's their feelings of anger, of hurt, of distrust. And so we have a conversation and sort of unpack that feeling piece, because if you can get them to, and certainly it's an analogy, obviously, but if you can get them to have any piece of that feeling piece, then that kind of opens up for them to want to learn more, right? One of the other pieces, I have this map up here. So this map is on ontario.ca, and you can actually click on each of the treaties and the communities. So part of the kit does have the map, which you saw. Interesting with the map, because every time and you can see it similar, obviously, every time I hold that map up, people will typically say, I'll say, where do you think the treaties are here? And 9 times out of 10, people will say that it's the actual reserve lands. So it's like a red color on the other map, not really realizing that the treaties make up all of these areas, with the exception of some of our unceded places. So it's really important to have these discussions, because every student in Ontario, they can tell you what city they live in, what province they live in. They can tell you the capital of Alberta or what have you, but can they tell you what treaty area they live in, or what traditional territory they live in? Oftentimes, no, right? So I'm going to play, or I'll bring up the, actually what I'll do is I'm just going to pass it over to Josh to share a couple words on treaties, and I'll get this, this other piece ready to go. Josh?
Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna give a little dialogue about where I'm from in regards to my treaties. So I'm from Wikwemikong, unceded Indian Reserve, and the word unceded is a very complex conversation for some people in regards to what does it really mean unceded. Well, to us it means that we haven't signed any kind of an agreement or a treaty with the with any other nation, and that, especially Canada, we haven't really made any kind of a treaty with them. And we have an understanding of an agreement in 1836 and that. So that's the position of Wikwemikong, is that they don't have a treaty within that binds them. But they do have two different identities within the community of Wikwemikong based on that 1836 agreement that all First Nations within the mainland would be moved to that to Manitoulin. So they had that obligation that they would open that up. But as time progressed, in 1836 to 1850, the mainland had to be imposed on the First Nations to create this new treaty, which was the 1850 treaty, the Robinson-Hiron Treaty. So my own ancestry from my mother's side, the Taugenene, is part of that treaty, is the signature of that treaty. And they were originated from Nipissing around, they worked around, or they traveled from Nipissing to Wanapate, and that's where they had their grassroots level. And then they kind of moved down towards the Georgian Bay area. So that was my understanding of my heritage of the 1850 treaty was the signature of my great grandfather Taugenene and that. So that kind of put me in a position of my family without any documentation, whatever, that they put us in that 1853 signatories of Taugen and his family. So that's why we're part of that 1850 treaty. On my dad's side, they don't have a treaty. They're part of the original people that was on Manitoulin before the Jesuits, before any colonization that came in and that. So they were the original people of Manitoulin, or the Great Lakes, around the Great Lakes, Michigan, because there's all kinds of information of how our ancestors passed through these islands, like Drummond Island, Mackinac Island, Madeline Island, all these islands right across to Detroit, Michigan, all the way down there. So those ancestors always had that movement of understanding where they belong, and that was to the land. And that's what Wikwemikong wound up, was being part of that tribe, moving to Wiki, or moving to Manitoulin, and identifying themselves as the people of the Three Fires. And part of the Three Fires Confederacy is with the Ojibways and the Odawas and Potawatomi. With the Odawa were the ones that was here as original people in Wikwemikong. The Ojibways came in with the 1850 treaty with their treaty rights. The Potawatomis came in from the west, from the Michigan area, and they brought in their inherent rights. And their inherent rights was them to be able to be self-sustained within that land base that they were occupying, and that. So that was the understanding of that tribe, and that. So we have two identities when Wikwemikong, and which is a treaty and non-treaty. So in regards for the non-treaty, they have a little more land to hunt and trap and support themselves based on a treaty person. For us, as treaty people and under the treaty, that's only the area for you to be able to do your sustainable resource extraction. But for the non-treaty, the inherent rights is to go and do whatever that is that your ancestry was doing before, and that's to hunt and fish, utilize the resources that those are your inherent rights. And in regard to the treaty rights, you're limited to that treaty area only, and that's how they identified that with Wikwemikong. So we have these two different identities in 1850, and then as years went by, 1862 came along, and then the government wanted to look at the Treaty of 1836 and how the 1850 affected the mainland and where the people went. So they decided to make another census in regards for making an agreement with the First Nations people on Manitoulin and that, and they structured a rendezvous point at Nantuaning where they did the Treaty of 1862. And then there's a lot of discrepancies in regards to how that treaty was done, in regards for harassment. There was a lot of talk about in regards for how the people that were signatories of the treaty were threatened. They were supplied with booze. There was a lot of alcohol involved in it. So the legitimacy of the whole treaty of 1862 was in question. And Wiki never took part of that treaty because it was so close for them to come back. Our signatories or our principal men, they were identified then, was that they came home and they weren't part of that harassment. They weren't part of that coerciveness of trying to sign over the treaty or the island to the government or in that. But that's what happened. The 1862 treaty kind of superseded everybody because of the signatures. And Wiki kind of opted out of that, and they said, no, we're not part of this 1862 treaty. As far as we're concerned, we still own Manitoulin because it's part of the 1836. So there's a lot of discrepancies in regards to how we look at the area of treaties that we're living in and where we come from. And that's why it's important for identity to understand. Our children need to understand their rights. They need to understand am I a treaty person or am I an indigenous person with inherent rights? Apjugo is very, even your language, you want to use your language in that, like I am right now. And that's part of your right in that. So, identifying and then educating our children in regards for what their rights are when they belong. Even my own grandchildren, if I asked them what if they knew what a treaty was, they would have a hard time understanding what that is and that. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done in regards to identifying our treaties in regards to where we are. And there's different forms of agreements that was done in regards for all different types of territories that we have and that. But a treaty is a lifetime. It's an agreement. And, for the Anishinaabe, for the indigenous person, that land is more than a treaty. It's a lifeline. That land that they see is a lifeline. And the reason I say that is because when I sit in the committee of the elders on the North Shore, and they're fighting in regards to how management is misusing the land, how they're ground spraying these lands with herbicides, and that's how they're managing the land to utilize the growth of that land by eliminating the other competitive species that they don't want. But that's not diversity. That's controlling the nature of what's supposed to be there and that. So, and these elders are fighting for this, to fight for the generations to come, because all this herbicide spraying they're doing is eliminating our wildlife, eliminating our plants, eliminating everything. And most of all, it's eliminating our elders and disbelief of how mismanagement in regards to how we look after the land and how can you be excluded in how you manage that land? And that's why it's important for treaties for us to understand in regards to what role do I play on that land? What role do I play as a treaty person, that 1850 treaty? Well, I got to sit with the elders from that treaty, because they're part of that fight with me. I'm part of that fight with them, to actually have some kind of understanding with the industry, forestry industry, mining industry, all these people that's extracting resources from that territory. We need some kind of a communication link in regards to how do we identify the treaty of sharing our resources. And that's very important for me to teach my grandchildren to understand their treaty area or their roles and responsibilities or their rights in that. So, there's a lot of things that I can go on and on and on and on. But if there's any more discussions that we need to make, sure, I can do that. But I'll give it back to you there, Ms. Crawford.
Miigwech. Okay, I'm just sharing my screen again. Okay, so a few things. I just want to show the actual kit, like the teacher's guide, just so you get a sense of what it's made up of. And I mean, there's different parts that are kind of more for, like, I guess, teacher tips. Those are kind of at the top. And the lessons, I'll just list through them just so you get a sense. Relationship blanket, our relationship with Anaknagewin, agreement with animals, Chinaknagewin, our relationship with natural law, nation to nation activity, our relationship with treaty Twitter campaign, mapping treaties, treaties in Ontario, understanding treaty through traditional transfer of knowledge, our relationship with residential school, treaties matter, our relationship with UNDRIP, and renegotiating treaties. There's also additional lesson plans on the Anishinaabe Nation website as well. One of those is the cost of treaties. And, sort of following up on what Josh was sharing about mining and, mineral extraction and all of that. Very interesting case with the Robinson Huron 1850 treaty. And that one lesson really speaks to that. And it's ongoing now, right? So basically the annuity for that treaty was $4 in 1850, and currently is still $4. So what has happened, and in that area, if you're not familiar with it, is a lot of mining and forestry activity. So when you really, what's happened is leadership that are the signatories of that treaty have actually taken the Crown and Ontario to court as far as not, because with the treaty is, there was that belief of sharing of resources, and that certainly hasn't happened. So when you really look at it, and sometimes you'll get people that'll, well, why are reserves in the state that they are? Why are, our people suffering in different ways? Well, when you think about it, who's really paying who to, when you're taking that extraction of resources and not sharing it, it's no wonder, right? So Justice Hennessy has now told, well, at one point, within last November, had told Ontario and Canada that she was siding with the First Nations in this case, and that they would have to come up with an amount. Ontario and Canada would have to come up with an amount. So I really encourage you to keep an eye out for that, because that's fundamental, right? And it's going to affect not only my belief anyways, not just that treaty, but I think we'll see a lot more of it. And when you look at those pieces, individually, communities, when you're talking about litigation for in regards to treaties, we're talking lots of money to have that litigation, and no one community would have been able to do that on their own, but collectively, those leadership coming together and, you know, getting loans to sort of fight this battle. And here we are, right? So it'll definitely be something to keep an eye on. The other piece, I think, that's important, and Josh did speak to it, that in the inherent right piece, understanding what inherent rights really are and what treaty rights are, and the, like, in the differences, right? It's like your inherent rights are given to you by the creator. You have that exists. And as far as for us, that inherent right, we are born with that. So it's not something that someone can take away, I guess, right? Okay, so so the other part of the kit, as far as resources, there are videos that we had completed by various people, and they do play into some of the lesson plans, but I do want to share one with you, just so you can get a sense of sort of what they're about. And there's a handful of people that have participated, but I would like to share this one.
Governance at Ryerson University. I'm also an assistant professor of politics at Ryerson. My name is Hayden King. I'm the director of the Center for Indigenous Governance at Ryerson University. I'm also an assistant professor of politics at Ryerson. We have a very long history of treaty making, right? Before settlers arrived, Indigenous peoples were making treaties with each other. We were making treaties with the land. For Anishinaabeg people, you know, treaties with the land were some of our first formal agreements that I think you could describe today or characterize today as a treaty. And we made treaties with Haudenosaunee people. Haudenosaunee people made treaties throughout the Great Lakes. So treaty making has been a very old feature of Indigenous diplomacy. And then, of course, I think misunderstanding really starts to seep into the notion of treaty when settlers do arrive and we do begin to make treaties. And of course, Indigenous peoples have maintained the principles of treaty making that they started since time immemorial with those new settlers. So, you know, treaties were agreements of peace, friendship, setting out our respective obligations and responsibilities to each other, ensuring that the land was spoken for. Really, you know, also sacred pacts. You know, these were not taken lightly, but ultimately, treaties for Indigenous peoples were long-term peace and friendship pacts, sharing agreements for how to live with each other on the land. And when settlers came, I think that they viewed treaties as very transactional. So we're essentially buying a lease on the land that we can exploit, we can consume and use the resources and move on. And so that is a very transactional way of looking at what for Indigenous peoples was much more about a relationship with each other, a relationship to the land. So I think that's a clash of worldviews that really emerged in the early mid-1600s and certainly is a feature of the relationship today. The settler perspective, the Canadian perspective or American perspective of treaties is the one that has been privileged, right? So it is generally non-Indigenous peoples that have written history textbooks. It is generally non-Indigenous peoples that have analyzed treaties from a historical perspective. It is generally non-Indigenous judges that make decisions on the validity and contents of a treaty. And all of those non-Indigenous peoples are couched in a particular way of viewing the world. You know, a lot of that has to do with the written version of treaties, which holds a lot of power for those who are part of the written tradition. And of course, the Indigenous peoples are through assimilation today, and it's something that we're very much involved in and with. But through time, as our relationship has evolved and as treaties have been interpreted, that one particular vision has been privileged, and that has marginalized Indigenous perspectives on treaties. And so I think that that's primarily why we have this tremendous misunderstanding, and primarily why Canadians only really seem to view treaties as these sort of one-time transactional agreements that allow them to come and settle and exploit the land, and forgot about the long-term friendship, peace, political, economic relationship that treaties are supposed to inform. The settler perspective, the Canadian perspective or American perspective of treaties is the one that has been privileged, right? So it is generally non-Indigenous peoples that have written history textbooks. It is generally non-Indigenous peoples that have analyzed treaties from a historical perspective. It is generally non-Indigenous judges that make decisions on the validity and contents of a treaty. And all of those non-Indigenous peoples are couched in a particular way of viewing the world. You know, a lot of that has to do with the written version of treaties, which holds a lot of power for those who are part of the written tradition. And of course, Indigenous peoples are through assimilation today, and it's something that we're very much involved in and with. But through time, as our relationship has evolved and as treaties have been interpreted, that one particular vision has been privileged, and that has marginalized Indigenous perspectives on treaties. And so I think that that's primarily why we have this tremendous misunderstanding, and primarily why Canadians only really seem to view treaties as these sort of one-time transactional agreements that allow them to come and settle and exploit the land, and forgot about the long-term friendship, peace, political, economic relationship that treaties are supposed to inform. I think often people think of treaties as being ancient history, right? That they're old, that they're, you know, that they were before Confederation, and I think that doesn't appreciate the fact that there are a variety of treaty-making eras. You know, there's the pre-Confederation treaty-making era, often led by Indigenous peoples. There's the numbered treaties and the Robinson treaties, the Confederation-era treaties. There's the blank treaties of Upper and Lower Canada, and of course now there's modern treaties. Comprehensive land claims. So treaties are kind of diverse as you go through history, and they aren't stuck in time or static. They're constantly evolving, constantly changing. And the thing about treaties is that they lay the foundation for relationships on the land. So it doesn't matter if the treaty was made in 1870 or 1921 or 1999 or 2016. That the treaty sets out the roles and responsibilities for individuals in relation to each other and on the land. And it does, and people come to Canada all the time. People come to Canada by virtue of the fact that the treaty exists. If treaties did not exist, newcomers would not be able to come and settle this land. That's what Canadians got out of the treaty bargain.
Okay. So a couple things. So that's an example of one of the videos. And you know, when we're talking about being able to have, you know, that peaceful settlement in this country, we're working with our students. It's also important to for them to understand their responsibility. Is my audio not working properly?
There's a very bad echo and it's very cringly. Put mute and then unmute. Try that.
How's this?
Nope, that's terrible.
Oh my goodness.
Good old technology.
So you
No, it's terrible.
Oh my goodness.
Try turning off your camera and bringing your camera back on. Sometimes the camera can. try talking without your camera on, Kelly.
How's this?
No, that's terrible.
I don't know what to do.
Well, the aliens have taken over.
Well, you know what I can do? I can bring up the back to you if you want to speak to it. I can bring it up.
Okay, sure. Okay, so Kelly is going to pull up an example of an activity in this kit, which is about what you may have heard as in reference to the UNDRIP. So the UNDRIP is actually known as the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And this is actually something that, myself as well as TISA in our roles as the Indigenous education leads in our respective school boards, we're always encouraging educators to really get to know and understand and use that in your classroom. And this could be really in any classroom whatsoever, in any subject area. So this is a very important legal document that outlines the rights for Indigenous peoples. And there is a call on through the TRC and the calls to action that speak to Canada implementing and aligning its laws to this UNDRIP. And I mean, when you look at the UNDRIP, we're talking about basic human rights. So the fact that Canada still refuses to align its laws to ensure basic human rights of people, that's got to be alarming, and that's something that we have an opportunity in education to really look at. So as you can see on the screen here, so the learning goals is to really look and explore the UNDRIP. It's not a very big document at all, and there's actually on the website, the United Nations website, there's actually a kid-friendly version that's really good as well. And so this activity asks students to look through the articles. So for example, here, Article 15, Indigenous peoples have the right to dignity and diversity of their cultures, traditions, histories, and aspirations, which shall be appropriately reflected in education and public information. So then you have an opportunity here to look at a news article. Now, you can expand this, just take any article, go to CBC Indigenous is another great place to look at even current issues that are going on. I mean, today we've been talking all week about what's happening up north. Maybe Tisa, you want to chime in here on what's going on in one of the communities in terms of access of water. There's let's take a moment and talk about that, and let's look at this idea and the UNDRIP and how, here's an example of how we can bring this in.
So, yeah, it's been in the news, national news, this in the past couple of weeks. One of the communities within the Anishinaabe Nation, the Treaty 9 and Treaty 5 area in Northern Ontario, one of the communities has had to evacuate because they don't have clean drinking water. The entire community, Niskandaga, has had to leave their homes. And they are staying, different places throughout Thunder Bay here. So, children have been displaced from school. They were already so displaced because of COVID. And now, the fear of coming out to a larger community, a city, and the risk of being exposed here to COVID is just another layer of stress on top of, not being home and being able to drink the water from your tap or bathe in the water. And we're not understanding why it is a battle to try and get clean drinking water in this country that we now know is Canada. It is incredibly frustrating, when we look at the the original intent of treaties was to share in the resources, There were some other stipulations that were in the treaties, but we were we were supposed to be living in peace and harmony and to be sharing in the resources. So, that is not happening. That is not happening right now with Neskantaga. And, we could think about, the inquiry launch that classrooms could be doing, just even with that one, experience that this community is having right now in 2020. What is happening in this community? What rights are being infringed on? When we think about the Declaration of Rights for Indigenous People, it goes against so much, where, the rights of children, even if we were to look at the various, declarations that are there for to protect the rights of people, and Canada's not doing that, not actively doing that right now for the people of Neskantaga. And currently, there are multiple drinking water advisories all throughout Canada, and that's just drinking water. We could go on and talk about the extraction of resources and how traditional lands are being enroached, and how that goes against basic human rights. Jody, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. And you'll see here what Kelly's putting up on the screen, looking at some of these articles. So having the right to full enjoyment as a collection or as individuals of all human rights and fundamental freedoms, like access to water, and to be free from being harmed just for existing. We talked about when we had Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler on that, students are being murdered or dying just for the sake of getting an education, or having to, at the age of 12 or 13, having to leave their homes and travel hundreds, like 400 or 500 kilometers away from their families and communities into a completely strange city that's filled with racism. So there's major inequities that are existing right now, and that we can really use a focus on the UNDRIP, and bringing it back to that and saying, okay, what's happening? Where do we see an alignment with the UNDRIP that's being violated? And then if you'll recall on the screen that Kelly had up earlier, one of the activities was to have them write to, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, write to a government official, write to your MPP, or you could even take it through, develop a social media campaign to raise awareness. So there's all kinds of ways to bring this to life in your classroom. Kelly, do you want to try your audio again?
How's that?
Mm-hmm. No.
Well, what we can do you want to pick out another piece of your guide, and I can try and help talk to it, as well as Tisa? And if there's any questions, please put them in the chat box. We will definitely ask your questions for Kelly here as well, or Josh. Okay, so I do see a question here. Do we order the kit in either English or French, or does it include the book/resources in both languages? So Kelly, you can text me if I'm wrong on this answer, but I believe you can order it in either English or French. So there is an entire version in French. And I do know that I know that the elementary books are also in Anishinaabe. I'm not sure if any of the secondary components of the kit are, but definitely there is a French version of that. Well, we're just waiting for Kelly as well. I'm going to just share with you here a resource that I put together recently as a way to help, again, explore how to become informed about what's going on currently. Maybe back in the spring, you've heard about Wet'suwet'en. Perhaps you heard about people from Tyendinaga showing their support for what was going on out west, and still is going on. Sorry, I shouldn't say it's over, about shutting down the railway. There's, you'll hear things that come up in the media. And I also want to emphasize that be careful as well when things are coming up in the media, because again, it's whose voices are telling the story. So we see a lot of racism and inaccurate information being portrayed and perpetuated through media often. So be very mindful about that. So in this resource, and I'll put this link up in the chat box. So there's to help go through and understand what's going on in this particular case with Wet'suwet'en. So there's another really good resource in here that you can access. And again, it's looking to understand what are Indigenous rights and why are we stopping the railway? Because you think about it, like how much more do people have to take in order to say, we don't want to be killed anymore. We'd like to have our basic human rights adhered to. And when, you've tried every other possible avenue, what else can people possibly do but to take, other measures into action? One of the really great things that I saw happen in Toronto was there was marches that took place, and there was thousands of people that took to downtown Toronto for this incredible march. And the majority of the people were non-Indigenous, and I think it's a really great way to show when we talk about allyship and getting involved, what that can look like and what you can do to show solidarity and support. So there's I don't know if you're Instagram users or not, but there's some fabulous information through Instagram, through some of these sites as well. Raven Trust, this one is Wet'suwet'en Checkpoint, and they provide like these really good, oops, I'm gonna leave that. Really good, easy to absorb information about these pieces. So this one here, you may have heard what's going out in with Mi'kmaq people out east right now, directly related to understanding treaties in terms of the fishery. And again, if you were tuned into some of our other conversations we've been having, is that this is the same thing that was going on 20 years ago. So like nothing's changed. Now, I think the difference is that now we have treaty education, and maybe now that we have this opportunity to talk about these things in our classroom, to become informed, hopefully in 20 years from now, we're not going to be going through the same thing. So I'll put this in the chat box for you, this link as another resource. Again, maybe you've heard of 1492 Land Back Lane, what's going on right now. And just be careful too when you hear things like protesters. There's a big difference between protesting and being a land protector or a water protector or a defender. So even the language around that is important. Tisa, is there anything else you want to add?
No, you did a great job covering all of that. I think these are really great opportunities to really get high school students, particularly, these resources are really geared towards high school. Get them into activating them as social justice minded citizens. I think that there's so much happening in the country, so much inequity, and and there are so many different perspectives that are out there about what is happening. And I've heard comments around, it's disrupting, it's damaging, that our land protectors are doing things that are interrupting, the livelihoods of hardworking people. So I think as teachers, we have such a great opportunity to go out and start correcting those narratives that, using these examples. I see up here, Kelly has an example of Josephine Ba, the Nokomis Josephine Ba, a water walker, and she did the sacred water walks, talking about the importance of water. Josh had spoke to it as well, around the gifts that our land and our environment, our water give us. Anishinaabe people, we considered the water to be living. It has spirit, and when you have spirit, you can't be owned. And so it's our responsibility as the human nation, as the human being, to work to protect that water. And it really makes me sad to know that children, they are really put in such a vulnerable place in in a community like Neskantaga, where the water is not safe for them to drink. There is a lot of work being done right now with the Water Walker, the book that was written by Joanne Robertson, that could supplement this activity particularly. It is a children's book, but it is a great read aloud book. It's something that I've used at the secondary level as well. And I know that Joanne is very approachable. The author, she worked very closely with the late Josephine Mandamin, and they co-created this book. There is a video that has been created about on Josephine Mandamin. There was a campaign called the Junior Water Walkers campaign, where classrooms around the world were asked to look at bodies of water that were near them, and to reflect on the relationship that they have with that water, that body of water, that spirit of water. And it's something so simple, but it's something that is so important, and something that we don't often do. Where our children aren't given very many opportunities to really pause and think about relationships that we have with our natural world. And once they are given that opportunity to reflect on those relationships that we do have with our natural world, then children start to gain a better understanding of what Inakanagewan is, what is worldview. Our Anishinaabe worldview are the laws that we have around our relationship with the land, because without the land, we could not exist. Without the water, we could not exist. Without the air, we could not exist. So definitely, working with our students at any age to explore that, explore those concepts.
So what perfect timing there, eh? Like, see how we're all able to just make this happen, as my dogs in the background are now freaking out. What a night. So you can see here what Kelly's showing is, aligning with all the many examples that Tisa is providing you, so that, really the sky's the limit in terms of how you can bring this to life in your classroom, There's so many great ways to explore, all of these important conversations, and all of this stems right out of treaty education. This is why it's so critically important to understand this. So, Kelly, you want to try one last time? We're coming to the end anyway. And if not, no. I'm going to go with it's spiritual interference. And perhaps, Josh, do you want to come back on and give any closing words for this?
I can do that. And maybe I'll just do a little touch up on a little bit of connection to the land that we all need to do. And part of education is to get the young people to get back to connecting within that space of the land that it has, and getting our youth back to the connection part of it is understanding the roles and responsibility of how we look after our resources, like the water, like the acknowledgement of Mother Earth, the acknowledgement of air that we breathe in, and the acknowledgement of that fire, that shkude, and the acknowledgement of that fire within, and that's that inner self that we need to do, and our children need to be reconnected with that energy of natural law, and that natural law has to be in place for our children to see, to feel, and to be able to smell that natural nature around them, and that season by season, and recognizing the context of that land, what it gives them, and how it changes into form from spring to summer to fall to winter, and utilizing our education in regards to these seasons, and we're educating ourselves in regards to how do we fit it into that environment. So discussions today in regards to how we connect with our children, and being able to connect them in any way is being very creative. And as a teacher, we all have to be creative, and you have to be really complimented in regards to how you do that, because it's creativity that will enhance the young minds of the understanding of the treaties, understanding the land, understanding the importance of nature, the importance of how they work together, and the importance of managing it, and making sure that there's always sustainability within that process of that management. And that's always very important for us to be able to educate our high school students to understand they're the age fire. And that age fire is the one that's going to change the whole concept of how we look after each other, how we look after the resources, in regards for learning our prophecies of what's happened in regards for genocide, colonialism, and contact. All these things that's taking place are tools of learning. And in order for us to move forward, we need to accept and acknowledge these things. We also need to be able to learn how to forgive and understand the concept of moving forward. And I strongly feel that is the part that our society needs, is that understanding and forgiving in regards to what's taking place or what's happening, and to try and take a look at the perspective of our rights. They're looking at the betterment of all mankind, and that's to be able to share what we have as a resource or as a territory in that. So I really compliment in regards to what's happening, but there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of knowledge keepers that could be tapped into to make sure that these teachings of natural law is always there. And that's when we did with that prayer this morning. I mean, just a little while ago. I'm saying prayers all morning, and so saying prayers all day is another way of understanding who I am, and being able to acknowledge the gifts that I pass on to. So And when we said that prayer a little while ago, is to acknowledge the 7 directions about the teachings that is provided to us in that. So I'm going to acknowledge those doorways for us to be able to acknowledge what was given and what was as a knowledge passed on to and that. So there's a lot of feedback that we can probably get as we go along in regards to the understanding of who we are. But anyway, I'm going to close my portion of my role and responsibility, and that's to make sure that we leave in a real good way and understand our direction. Mm-hmm. I say, Chimi Wish to you for giving us the teaching of understanding and communicating in regards to how we fit into our life and how we walk our path. We ask that you guide us and guide our children, our teachers to understand what they need to do. We ask the 8th fire to be written up to say what we need to say about the 8th fire, because they're the ones that's going to carry that torch. We say, Chimi Wish to you for giving us that balance and that energy of understanding where we are, where we come from, and how we work together. We acknowledge the teachers and the students that was be learning from what we talked about today. So we acknowledge them. We say, acknowledge my chichak, my own spirit, and I acknowledge every one of you in the circle that was part of this teaching. I say, acknowledge to the directions of the 4 winds, the Wabanong, the ancestors of those directions, the Shomsinok, Misak, and Zanmanak. We honor and thank you for opening that doorway and showing us guidance and direction for our teachers, for our students, so that we can understand and communicate in a better way. So we say, Chimivesh, to you to keep that door and guide us through what we need to do. I say, ho, so there you go. Acknowledging ourselves and acknowledging the gifts that we gave today. There you go, Grandma.
Miigwech, Josh. So just last little bit here, just a reminder that you can find all of our recordings here at our website under events and webinars. This is where, and we have one more live stream tonight at 8 o'clock. Hopefully you don't miss that. It's with Alan Corbier, who actually happens to be from the same community that Kelly is from, Chiging, which is also on the same little island that Josh is on, Manitoulin Island. They all come from that same area. So that'll be a real treat tonight at 8 o'clock. And next week we have some live stream events that's available if you haven't registered for those. Those are live stream events right into your classroom for students. So thank you again for joining us here tonight. We hope that this has been helpful for you. We encourage you to keep going on your education journey. We're already seeing such great impacts that education is having already just with treaty education. So on behalf of FNMIAO, have a good night. Thank you again to Kelly and Josh, and stay safe. We'll see you soon.